Friends of Winston Smith, thank you very much for tuning in and listening to our program. We won't keep you. When we decided to do a podcast, we made a decision to keep them short so that sometimes when you pull up something on YouTube and you see an hour or it's going to be 2 hours, sometimes that's great. But sometimes you just want okay, give me kind of a 15-minute little deal here that I can deal with. So that's what we're doing here. Friends of Winston Smith. Well, as you might recognize, the name Winston Smith is very famous from the novel by George Orwell called 1984. Winston Smith is, of course, the protagonist. There's just so many similarities to what Winston was dealing with to what is actually going on in the world today. As a matter of fact, it happens to be 2022. Couldn't tell you the day or the time right now, but as long as I know what year it is, I think I'm okay, right? So what we're doing is taking a close look, especially at censorship, not in the media, but censorship by the media. And let's take a little bit of a look at that. You know, the famous quote from 1984 was, "Freedom is being free to say that 2 + 2 = 4. And we all know what the party thinks. If they want to tell you to believe that 2 + 2 = 5, and you don't believe it, they get a little aggravated with you. But the fact is, being free has a lot to do with being free to acknowledge true facts. Because if you have to believe untrue facts and or disavow true facts in order to be part of a civilization, well, that's not exactly freedom, is it, my friends? But what we were taking a look at originally when we were talking about doing this podcast was the question of vaccine injuries, the COVID vaccine injuries, and the lack of media attention to the facts and the political side of things. There are very few people who are championing the cause of those who stepped up to take a COVID vaccine and got injured by the vaccine. Because you see, the pharmaceutical companies, they're not promoting that. The government is not promoting that. They're promoting mandates. Pharmaceutical companies are promoting the product. The media is not promoting that. The media is promoting, well, let's see, it was COVID up until a couple weeks or months ago, right? COVID was the driving topic of everyday discussion up until right about the time, well, I guess right about the time Russia invaded Ukraine, right? After that, the war in Ukraine has been the topic. And if you'll notice, a lot of these COVID places are lifting their mandates, tossing their masks, but yet the pharmaceutical companies want to get FDA to approve a 4th dose of their product that hasn't done too good for anybody with 1, 2, or 3 doses. So I'll give you a hint. If you took a shot of something at the beginning of last year and you've taken 2 more shots of it in the course of the year, and now they're wanting you a year later to take a 4th shot, well, you might just want to think about the quality of the product. But who else is involved in this? Of course, media. We mentioned them. They're not promoting it. Well, for one thing, they get their advertising revenue from pharmaceutical companies. Yeah, remember all those commercials that pop up when you're trying to watch a show? And they talk to you mostly about the side effects of the drug than the actual describing the product. But I digress. As we see it, any attempt to keep the truth down is censorship. And if you're not promoting what is true, that being there have been COVID vaccine injuries in abundance, but you're not promoting what is true, but in opposition to that, you're promoting what is not true, that the vaccines are safe. Well, look, I almost said it myself just by saying the vaccines are safe. What other words almost rolled out of my mouth? And effective, right? So just like bookends, the words safe and effective seem to go together here. Well, they go together in the promise and the promotion, but do they go together in the effect? Well, I would have to say no. Once again, they're petitioning for a 4th shot about a year after they gave you the first one. And as far as safe, I will attest to that. It is not safe. I myself have gotten some vaccine injuries that I'm still dealing with a year later. So we will all take a good hard look at what's going on with the censorship of the media and the lack of activity by any of the politicians who pushed the stuff, the pharmaceutical companies who made the stuff, the medical community. Because typically, well, you know, we think of the medical community, we think of Dr. House and people who are full of scientific curiosity. intellectual curiosity. And we also think of, ER or medical center, if you want to go back with Chad Everett with me, or any number of programs in which the medical community is portrayed, and rightly so, as a caring, loving, compassionate group of hardworking individuals who care about their patients. And I'd say still to this day that's 99% true. But what the vaccine-injured folks have found, going to their local specialist in a certain area, or maybe even their general practitioner who they've been seeing for years, they get a lot of, head scratching and never seen this before. And of course they haven't. But in a lot of cases, people are getting told that, well, you have anxiety, or, it's in your head, or, maybe it's old age, or this or that. I mean, it just goes on and on. Point being that even the medical community is not taking care of business in this regard. So that being said, now we have a little bit of an idea of what we're dealing with, right? So yeah, it's been even bandied about, as it were, that doctors who speak against the vaccine are in danger of losing their medical license. Now, I know I might have seen an article here or there about that. I cannot attest to it personally. However, maybe by the time we do our next broadcast, we'll just answer that question. Maybe we'll have that as a feature of the show, as a question or a series of questions that we'll just look into for next week. Anyway, so that is Friends of Winston Smith, what the plan is. Of course, we've got a lot of things going on in this world, like memory hole, getting disappeared, right? Being unpersoned, banished from the public square, and things that happen are getting rewritten. Comments that politicians make abroad that seem a little embarrassing. Well, when you read the transcripts later, they're nowhere to be found. So the record and the historical record is actually scrubbed from the official source. That is to say, the White House. Other things. Oh my gosh, groupthink. Groupthink. You've got to be part of the groupthink. If you are not down with the groupthink, if you don't go where the in-crowd goes, if you're not with the group there, you will be ostracized and typically considered an enemy. So you got to think like the group and double speak. Oh my gosh. New speak. Double plus good. It's pretty much the new speak is you will no longer say these words. You will no longer speak in this fashion. You will no longer question these leaders. You will no longer have a voice. Well, there you go. Big tech. How could I forget? Big tech, before we sign off of this week's episode. Big tech is the group of the media that is putting everything on the back burner or knocking it right on into the trash bin. Whatever. They are really meant to be a free display of ideas. The internet, the open free exchange of ideas. Well, sure, the platforms like the Twitters and the Facebooks and the whatevers of the world, Google and YouTube out there. Sure, they're just one of many of those type of programs. And if you're not happy with their rules, why, you could just go somewhere else. Of course, this is after over 10 years of public support and goodwill and everything else that got those companies to where they are now. So it's a little disingenuous to say, well, it's our ball, so we'll make the rules. So, when a search engine buries information about COVID vaccine injuries, when Facebook gets rid of groups because they're talking about it, when I'm sure there's other things out there. Twitter, I don't get on Twitter, so I really don't know what they do. Even Reddit has been getting rid of people who are talking about the vaccine injuries. It's pretty bizarre considering you would always think that they were more underground and free and open and whatnot. But anyway, anything that steps out of character with what the CDC and the World Health Organization and the NIH are putting out there as quote-unquote fact, anything that's out of step with that gets labeled misinformation, and as such is taken off and out of public view. However, quote-unquote misinformation is actual fact. So people's life experiences of injuries with these vaccines is not only not being put out there, it is being called lies. So that's one thing to consider about all this. And, the media goes a long way in not putting this out there, because obviously we all know how the media influences us. You want to buy something, they're going to put a commercial for it. They want you to believe a certain thing is happening or not happening. They're going to present that and not present the other case. Part of the issue, as I was told by a great teacher at university where I took some classes in communications, Bias in the news is not only what they cover, and it's not only how they cover what they cover, but bias in the news is also what they don't cover. So, as we all have become a lot more sophisticated in these ultra media drenched days, we all can appreciate that, I'm sure. But the media forms opinion. So when the media is out there forming your opinion for you, if you look for something on a search engine and you're just trying to get the facts about it, the good, the bad, the ugly, and all you hear is either a bad thing about it or all you hear is either a good thing about it, you don't get the full orbed concept of what you're even talking about, whether it be a politician or whether it be a medical push or whatever. You're not getting it fully informed. So you can't have informed consent about anything. And the media is ultimately responsible because the press is the one supposed to be going, the emperor has no clothes, right? The press is the one supposed to be pointing out things. When I was a young man in the 70s, we were always having a good time. But one of the bumper stickers that I do remember was question authority. Where's that gone? Where's that mindset gone? Where are the rebels? Where are the revolutionaries? Where are the people who are just thinking differently? And I'm not saying violent revolution, and I'm not saying a hateful rebel. I'm saying go against the established norm of what you see and hear everybody like sheep heading to a certain direction. Or just shutting everything out. It's like with the person with the finger in their ears going blah, 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 I can't hear you. We can't ignore these things forever. Once they start pushing their agenda on you through media, your freedom and the rest of your life is gone. So think about that. So as we draw to a close, I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. But that is the overview of what Friends of Winston Smith is all about. Because we are sympathetic with Winston, and we will keep our daily diary, and we will document what's going on, and we will question authority, and we will ask the questions that maybe nobody's asking. And as we publish things on our platforms, we will publish the things that are being taken down by the censorship brigade, and that will be what we call our bastion of freedom. If you can't get to something, get to Friends of Winston Smith and let me know about it. If it's been taken down, we'll put it up. Because the truth needs to come out about a lot of things. And just a tip of the iceberg here, you may or may not have heard about the Hunter Biden scandal. And a year ago, that was news. 2 years ago, that was news. That was news before the election of 2020. Everything that Hunter Biden laptop scandal entails, which I don't need to go into, but it does involve corruption, money, drugs, sex, all the groovy stuff that everybody always likes to read about. But whenever that came out in October of 2020, the media, the press, politicians, all gathered together to say it was so much bunk. Oh, it was Russian disinformation. You had a document of 50 or so ex-CIA, ex-whatever, big shot Washington bureaucratic lifers who signed this thing saying this Hunter Biden laptop thing is nothing but Russian disinformation. And the funny thing about that was, what was that based on? They were not actively investigating anything. They were just making a blanket statement. The point being to cover for Joe Biden because, number one, Joe Biden was saying that the laptop didn't exist and it was Russian disinformation. But he's also implicated in some pretty nefarious stuff in that data that was in that laptop that could have swayed the election. In fact, 1 out of 6 Joe Biden voters have said that if they knew the information about their laptop was true and they knew it before the election, they would have changed their vote. So we've got some serious things when media and the powers that be can suppress things and actually put their thumb on the scale of American constitutional voting and elections and sway an election a certain way. So that is just the tip of the iceberg. But this program is going to be promoting truth and pointing out censorship, and we've got a special eye toward and a heart for the vaccine injured, the COVID vaccine injured, who are being vindicated daily by the facts as they slowly come out. As Pfizer wanted to keep their notes under wrap for 75 years, they finally did have them bring some out. And there is a big long section in the back, 9 pages of vaccine injuries. So for the media, the social media, anytime somebody talks about vaccine injuries, to put on there that it's misinformation, it is not misinformation because even Pfizer is saying it happens. obviously. And everybody knows it's happened. They've always, just like the laptop, everybody knew it happened. It's just getting certain factions of the society to admit it and acknowledge it. But the people need help. The people who are injured with the vaccine injuries need medical help. They need to be believed, and they need to be heard. And there needs to be some things happen to help these folks. That's it, plain and simple. But we are the friends of Winston Smith, and we are about to sign off. We want to thank everybody for tuning in, and we appreciate you so much for giving us the chance to be heard. That's what this is all about, is getting a chance to be heard. We're talking about facts that are being kept from public view. Facts that would alter people's views on things. Because let me say, when you can change the way somebody looks at something, or when you change what the person is able to see when they turn on the TV, you're ultimately changing their mind about something. You're controlling their mind because you're only giving them certain things and keeping other things from them. So they're not getting the full picture. So you are controlling what they think about something if you are doing that censoring. So anyway, think about that. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. And we do thank you so much for tuning in. And this is Friends of Winston Smith. We will be back with you next time. Take care, peace, be strong, and cry freedom.